State of Iowa versus McKinley Louisma. Trial information. Comes now Nicholas G. Maybanks as prosecuting attorney, and in the name and by the authority of the State of Iowa accuses McKinley Louisma of the crime of count 1, murder in the first degree, committed as follows. That the said McKinley Louisma, on or about February 17, 2024, in the county of Lynn and state of Iowa, did unlawfully and willfully kill Melody Hoffmanin with malice aforethought, willfully, deliberately, and with premeditation, and or while participating in a forcible felony offense of kidnapping, and or aid and abet another in the commission of the offense at Morgan Creek Park, 7212 E Avenue Northwest, Cedar Rapids, Lynn County, Iowa, and or Lily Lake, 220th Trail and 38th Avenue, Amana, Iowa County, Iowa, in violation of section 707.1, 707.21a, Iowa Criminal Code. Count 2, kidnapping in the first degree, committed as follows. Count 3, conspiracy to commit a forcible felony, committed as follows. That this depraved, dehumanizing, defies reason. The evidence in this case will show that the defendant's actions, along with his accomplice, Dakota Van Patten, on February 17th into February 18th, 2024, were depraved. The evidence in this case will show that they kidnapped, killed, and mutilated Melody Hoffmanin in a manner that can be described as nothing less than dehumanizing. The evidence will show that both of these women knew about the other. And the evidence will show that the woman with which he had the longer-term relationship and commitment was Nakia, and she told the defendant he had to choose between her and Melody. The evidence will show there was a lot of stress going on in the defendant's life. A pregnant girlfriend and an ex-girlfriend, Melody, who still wanted to be in his life, with a secret of her own that was discovered after she died. You will hear the defendant's girlfriend had pregnancy complications that day on February 17th, 2024, adding to his stress. The evidence will show that this triangle, although certainly not unique, was extraordinary in the consequences that resulted from it. On February 17th, the evidence will show the defendant had a past with Melody Hoffmanin, but she wanted to have a future with him. Video surveillance, physical evidence, and even DNA evidence. The state will lay out to you exactly where Melody Hoffmanin traveled with these two men, the defendant and Dakota Van Patten, and what happened during that fatal car ride. During this case, you will hear that Kimpton talked openly to others about the plan that he, the defendant, and Van Patten had. In this case, you'll be able to follow their actions as they came into contact with each other, proceeded to the Walmart on the southwest side of Cedar Rapids, and you will see that Kimpton then left the other men for the night, leaving the defendant and Van Patten together. The evidence will show they were together within an hour or so prior to picking up Melody Hoffmanin, when the defendant picked up another person, Trevor Weiss, from work at Lebowski's and drove him home. The evidence will show the defendant would later return to Trevor Weiss's residence after all this happened and tell him to tell anyone who may ask that he and Trevor were playing video games together all night. The evidence will show the defendant and Van Patten picked up Melody from her house. Initially, they were listening to music and driving around, seemingly having a good time. But that changed when they arrived at Morgan Creek Park in Lynn County. When they arrived at Morgan Creek Park, the evidence in this case will show that Megan Hoffman, the protective mom, was watching Melody's location and determined what she already pretty much knew, that Melody was with the defendant, because she knew they had been there before and the defendant's parents lived in that area. The evidence will show they drove to this dark and secluded park in Linn County, and that's where this fun night turned fatal. The evidence will show that the carefreeness and levity of the night turned into depravity. The evidence will show that it was at Morgan Creek Park where whatever depraved plan the defendants had came into action. Melody was beaten. You'll hear about the blunt force of the beating she took when you hear from the pathologist who conducted her autopsy. While beating her, the evidence will show they used the handle of the machete across her face, just one of the weapons they ended up using. The evidence will show they terrorized and tortured her. They stopped in a parking lot not far from her house. The evidence will show that Megan Hoffman was watching her daughter's location still, wondering where Melody was at and what she was doing. The evidence will show that Megan received a message from Melody on Snapchat, but the evidence will show that it could not have been Melody talking to her or messaging her at that time. The evidence will show was these men working in concert, and likely that it was the defendant directly communicating with Megan. You will see this conversation, and you will see that they indicated to Megan that Melody was nearby and heading home soon. The evidence will show that Megan demanded that Melody come home. And then the evidence will show in this case that the defendant and Van Patten encountered a Marion police car. And that at approximately the same time they did that, the location detection on Melody's phone was shut off and they left the area. The evidence will show that the defendant, Van Patten, and Melody Hoffman kidnapped, tortured, injured, and restrained, then traveled to Lily Pond in Amana, Iowa. Her final destination, the last journey of her life. The evidence will show that the defendant had intimate knowledge of Lily Pond and where it was. In this case, you'll see what happened next. And it will be shocking. And you might want to understand why it happened. But the evidence shows you, whatever reason it happened, defies reason. Evidence will show that the defendant, with Dakota Van Patten by his side, strangled Melody, stripped Melody, mutilated her body, and left her for dead on the shore of a chilly pond in rural Iowa County. And we'll show that to you to any doubt, beyond any doubt that is reasonable. And when we lay out for you the evidence in this case and the instructions that the court gives to you, we will ask you for verdicts of guilty to murder in the first degree, kidnapping in the first degree, and conspiracy to commit a forcible felony.
However, this case is not nearly as straightforward as the state would lead you to believe. The state says frequently, they. But there was no plan, ladies and gentlemen. There was no agreement. They were not acting in concert. There was no the defendant and Van Patten. Because while he was there, he did not strangle her. While he was there, he did not cut her. While he was there, he he was there. He did not kill her.
And if you would please start by stating and spelling your full name to the record.
Amy Lynn Robas, R-O-B as in boy, A, S like Sam, S like Sam, E.
Thank you. Good morning. And while you were there, what did you do?
I was listening to my audiobook and just thinking and looking out the window.
While you were there, did anyone else arrive in the area?
Yes, there were 2 other cars that came and sort of did what I was doing. They sat and they were actually on their phones and talking and then left after a few minutes. And then I had a couple approach my vehicle on foot.
What was the weather conditions like that morning?
Overcast, kind of foggy.
When this couple approached you, what did they do?
They were acting strange. I actually felt really nervous seeing them because they were clearly agitated. They were older than I am and coming towards me kind of waving. And so I rolled down my window and they were immediately asking for help. And so I ended up getting out of my vehicle to find out what was going on.
Did they direct you to a certain area in the park?
Yeah, they pointed towards the shore behind the picnic pavilion at the Lily Lake and said that they had been walking and saw something over there and they didn't know what it was, if it was a dead animal or if it was a mannequin or if somebody was playing some kind of prank, and would I go over there and look.
How long had you been there like that?
I would say I think I'd probably been there about 20 minutes.
And did you go out to that area to see what they were talking about?
Yeah, as soon as I exited my vehicle and started walking that direction, I was able to see that there was a human body and that it was not moving. And so I called 911 as I was walking that way.
Now I'm handing the witness what's been marked as State's Exhibit number 5. Did you also end up receiving a phone call back from 911 to gather more information?
Yes, I did.
And have you had an opportunity to review that prior to today's date?
Yes, I did.
Is that also a fair and accurate recording?
Yes, it was.
Move to enter State's Exhibit number 5, Your Honor.
Any objection to 5?
No objection.
5 is admitted.
Permission to publish those exhibits, Your Honor.
You may do so.
Thank you.
County 911, what is the address of your emergency? I'm actually at Lily Lake in Amana, and it looks like a dead body here. I'm with a couple other people. They said don't turn on the sirens. Okay, you're at the Lily Pond? Yeah, right by where the picnic area, the pavilion is. Okay. It's a woman, and she's just wearing underwear. Is she breathing? It does not look like it. Do you see her chest rising and falling? She's on her back or on her stomach. Okay. Do you see any movement on her? I don't want you to touch her. No. None. And there's a bunch of like welts and marks on her. And she looks stiff. But she does have goosebumps. I don't know. What's your name? Amy Robas. Can you spell the last name? R-O-B as in boy, A, S like Sam, S like Sam, E. And phone number, Amy? 319-217-2866. Okay, I'll get somebody over there, okay? Yeah, thanks. Okay, yep, bye-bye. ambulance
Yes.
on the way, and I've got some deputies on the way. Where exactly are you
Okay.
guys at the Lily Lake?
We're sitting at the pavilion,
And how
and the
many
body
people are
is,
there?
there are 3 of us. There were 2 people walking, and I was actually just sitting in my car looking at the birds, and they came and grabbed me because they weren't sure if it was real, and so we're all sitting here together.
Okay, just a minute.
Sure.
Okay, so you said that she's on her stomach.
She is on her stomach, yes.
Does it look like she was in the water?
No.
Okay, and is there anything else around her?
No, but there are all kinds of marks on her back, like flashes.
Okay. Okay,
And I'm wondering if there might have been a. No, we're not. We're not over there anymore. I'm wondering if there might have been a sexual assault too.
Okay. Like I said, I have deputies on the way. If you can just
Okay. Yep, we're waiting.
away from her, but if anybody does go
Yep.
up to her, just tell them to get away, please.
Yep. And there's nobody else here right now. We're hanging out waiting.
Okay, thank you, Amy.
Okay. Yep. Bye bye.
Ms. Robust, and did you remain on the scene there at Lily Pond until law enforcement and medical authorities arrived?
Yes, I did.
And while you were awaiting their arrival, was this body disturbed in any way?
No, it was not.
Did you remain on the scene long enough to provide your name and information in case you needed a later date?
Yes, I did.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Cross.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning.
Ms. Robas, do you recall what the temperature was that morning?
No, I do not.
You referenced noticing goosebumps, is that right?
Yes, I did.
That stood out in your mind that day?
Yes, it did.
You mentioned it today in your testimony. When you went home that day, you got on the internet, didn't you?
Yes, I did.
Some of the observations that you'd made led you curious to learn more information, is that right?
Yes.
And so, for instance, you got online and you did a little bit of research on the internet about goosebumps, is that right?
That's correct.
But you're not an expert in that area, are you?
Absolutely not.
And you mentioned your observation of the knife injuries being possibly post-mortem, is that right?
Correct.
That is in no way an area of your expertise, would you agree?
Absolutely not. No.
You're just kind of guessing.
Correct.
That's okay. I appreciate it. You've answered my question.
Yeah.
I don't have any other questions. Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Redirect. If you would please state and spell your full name for the record.
My full name is Mark James Teat. First name is M-A-R-K. Middle is James, J-A-M-E-S, and Teat is spelled T-I-E-D-T. It was probably about 12, I think I have in my notes. In the morning, Iowa County Dispatch received a 911 call of a female that had been found at the Amana Lily Lake, and the caller believed that she may be deceased.
When you work patrol, are you patrolling the entirety of Iowa County?
Yes, all approximately 600 square miles. Went over and observed Miss Hoffman lying in the grass, and to me, obviously, she was clearly deceased as well.
When you say you observed her, can you describe for us what your initial observations of Melody Hoffman were?
So she was lying face down on the ground. Her head was to the east, her feet were to the west. Her arms were down to her sides, kind of spread out a little bit. I would say her hands were 2 or 3 feet from her body. She had all kinds of lacerations across her back and then some stab wounds on her back as well. Her underwear was pulled down over her buttocks, and then her bra had been pulled up towards her shoulders.
Deputy, can you recall, or would you describe this crime scene as particularly bloody?
No, there was very little blood, actually. Ms. Hoffman had a little bit of blood, but there was no blood pooled anywhere on the ground. To me, it was almost as if that's not where the scene occurred, the actual homicide occurred, because there was no blood anywhere, really.
Was the area and the condition of Melody Hoffman's body photographed before she was moved or manipulated in any way?
Yes, I did photograph the scene along with the body.
Were there any evidentiary items that were located near or around Ms. Hoffman's body?
So we found a necklace that was laying near her, and we also found a piece of pink cloth that was laying near her, and I believe we found a cigarette and a blister pack for a pill. I don't believe we gathered those as evidence. I don't know if those had anything to do with the case or not, but those are the 4 things that stick out to me.
The necklace that was found, was she wearing that necklace?
No, it was laying on the grass next to her.
Do you specifically recall any pieces of jewelry being worn by Melody?
Ms. Hoffman did have a class ring on her hand.
Are you a certified peace officer in the state of Iowa?
Yes.
You reference yourself as a sergeant detective. Are those 2 different titles?
Detective is what I'm assigned to do. Sergeant is my ranking.
How long have you been a sergeant?
Since 2016, February 19th of this year.
And tell us how that came to be.
I received a phone call about 1 p.m. in the afternoon that day from my supervisor, Lieutenant Dave Buter. He had informed me that a deceased female had been located in Iowa County, and that they had information that she had possibly been in Morgan Creek Park. He asked that I go there along with a couple other detectives to check the area for any evidence that could be related to that case.
So after you received, where'd you go after you left Morgan Creek Park?
Sergeant Payne and myself were then asked to go to the Walmart on the southwest side of Cedar Rapids. I think he had sent Tim Payne a couple of receipts that were located in a suspect vehicle during a search warrant.
And those receipts showed purchases made from the southwest side Walmart?
Correct.
Were you guys in possession of or sent at some point copies of those receipts to take with you out there?
Yeah, I think that came through through a text message.
Can you recall, or do you have recollection of what was purchased during that February 17th, 2:56 p.m. trip?
I didn't at that time. The description, from the description, I couldn't tell what it was, but I later found that it was a digital doorknob.
And when you reviewed the video from the date and the time that was stamped on the receipt that was recovered, were you able to see who was making the purchase?
Yes.
And who made the purchase of that digital doorknob?
It was the defendant, McKinley Louisma.
And just to be clear, is he in the courtroom today?
He is.
Can you point him out, describe an article of clothing he's wearing?
It's the gentleman sitting in the light blue long sleeve button-up shirt.
Your Honor, if the record could reflect, this witness did identify the defendant.
It will. For both of them.
For the videos related to the 10:06 p.m. purchase.
Okay. So there were 4 videos. One would have been at the in the parking lot, showing the vehicle of the 3 people that were related to this specific transaction. Then there was an overhead shot at the self-checkout showing the purchase itself and the 3 individuals who were there. And then there was 2 other clips up at the front of the store, so past the point of sale registers, 2 different clips of them leaving or exiting the store.
And so when you're discussing these different clips and the location of these cameras, there were multiple cameras that were recording simultaneously during this time?
Correct.
Did the state have permission to publish those exhibits, Judge?
You may.
Detective Grote, firstly, I want to there's a laser pointer up there if there's something that you want to draw our attention to.
Okay.
In State's Exhibit 7A, can you tell us what we're looking at in this photograph?
This is the sporting goods section at the Southwest Side Walmart. The 3 individuals on the clip, the one with the stocking cap, the white male with the stocking cap on the right side is Dakota Van Patten.
Would that be this person?
Yes.
Okay.
The subject to his right is Logan Kimpton, and then the male directly behind him is McKinley Louisma.
And in 7B, what are we seeing here?
McKinley Louisma?
Is that the same aisle that was seen in the previous exhibit?
Yes.
And in 7C, what are we seeing?
Dakota Van Patten?
7D?
The same 3 individuals. The first one, Van Patten, then Kimpton, then Louisma.
And in State's Exhibit 7E, what camera angle are we looking at here?
So this is above the self-checkout register.
And are you able from this angle to recognize the parties shown in this photograph?
I can, just because I've reviewed the video clip.
Okay. Who is the person in the bottom right-hand corner?
McKinley Louisma?
And the person in the middle, is this just the Walmart employee?
Correct.
And whose shoe and hand in a pocket is seen on the left bottom side of this screen?
I believe that's Dakota Van Patten's.
Excuse me. 7F, can you tell us what we're seeing here?
The purchase for the 2 machetes. There's 2 machetes there, and then the same 3 individuals.
The person seen in the middle now, who is this?
Kimpton, Logan Kimpton.
And in 7G?
So that is Logan Kimpton's right hand inserting a $20 bill.
After you had an opportunity to review the video, did the $20 bill come out of the defendant's wallet?
Yes.
And in 7H, is this the second machete that was being purchased? As the other one's in his left hand?
Yes.
Speaking of 7H, there were items seen in this gray bag. Were those items selected from the store by the defendant or the 2 others that were with him?
No.
How did they get in that bag?
We had gone back to Walmart the second day for a few other things and were asked by Marion investigators to inquire as to how those 2 items got in the bag. In reviewing the video at the store, there was a Walmart associate who was at the register just prior to this transaction. It appears that she rang those 2 items up and then got distracted by either a text or a phone call on her phone and walked off, leaving, I believe, like a flavored water and a box of cookies in that bag.
And 7I, what are we looking at here?
That shows McKinley Louisma holding both machetes, and he has his wallet out, I believe. I take that back. I think those are the coated gloves in his left hand.
And in 7J, are you able to confirm that in his left hand it is the coated gloves?
Yes.
What are we seeing in 7K?
They just left the self-checkout. McKinley Louisma has the gray sweatpants, dark colored hoodie, and red shoes. And then to the left, individual with the stocking cap on is Dakota Van Patten, and the subject that you can barely see is in front of him is Logan Kimpton.
And the 3 individuals that you just referenced, are they also shown in 7L?
Yes.
Shorter one is Kimpton,
Yes.
stocking cap, Dakota Van Patten,
Yes.
and this gentleman to the left with the red shoes is Louisma.
Yes.
And in 7M, is that a continuation of them leaving the store?
Yes.
Who's carrying the machetes in these photographs?
McKinley Louisma has the bag.
And the 2 long items, are those the machetes?
Correct.
When you say that McKinley Louisma has the bag, did that bag when they left also contain that flavored water and that package of cookies?
Yes.
7N, what camera angle are we seeing in this photograph?
It's the parking lot.
Same 3 individuals?
Yes.
On the left, is this Dakota Van Patten?
Yes.
And is McKinley Louisma the subject on the right?
Yes.
And then Logan Kimpton in the middle?
Yes.
And in 7O, what are we seeing?
They're getting into a dark colored sedan.
When you say dark colored, are you able to tell what color that vehicle is?
It looks blue.
You may. If you would please start by stating and spelling your full name for the record.
Trevor Weiss, Trevorweis.
Can you tell us how you came into contact with him?
I needed a ride home from work, and he came and picked me up. So after I got off, I got in the car with him. He drove me from Lebowski's. We went down the main street there in Robbins. Then we went over the bridge and took a left on Robbins Road. And then as soon as went down a little ways, and then took a right onto Tower Terrace, and then went straight from there, and then the roundabout, and then straight, and then took a right onto Morning Dove, and then dropped me off.
How long a ride is that?
It's about 8 minutes car ride.
How did you arrange for him to pick you up that night?
I messaged him. Yeah.
Was he agreeable to give you a ride?
Yes, sir.
Is that something he would do for you on occasion?
Yes, sir.
Do you remember approximately what time he picked you up or arrived at your workplace?
About 10:30.
You said 11 o'clock was closed, right?
11 o'clock is closed, yep. But he arrived a little early, 10:30, 10:45-ish. And I got done around 10:58 that night.
You said they. Was there somebody with the defendant?
Yes, sir.
Who was that?
Dakota Van Patten.
When the defendant and Dakota Van Patten arrived at Lebowski's to pick you up early, did you make contact with him and tell him that, you needed more time or anything like that?
No, I just finished up my work and got my work done, and then got a ride home.
Did you know Dakota Van Patten before that day?
I did, but it was minimal communication before then.
Where
I
had
met
you
him
seen
through.
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
Where had you seen him before?
My mom's house on Hummingbird Lane.
Did you recognize him at first?
I did, yeah.
So during that 8-minute car ride, do you remember anything about the conversation that took place?
I remember when we got to like Tower Terrace Road, and then we came up and saying that that don't tell my mom, but they're trouble together, like hanging out. Ken and Dakota. That don't tell like my mom like that they're together.
Wait. You have to have your mic. You may. I think where we left off, though, Counsel, you had stated an objection. My understanding is that Counsel was going to try to clear up the matter, and then you'll restate the objection if appropriate. Go ahead.
So we were talking about a conversation that took place in the car, Trevor.
Yeah.
And you were starting to tell us about that. But before you do, I wanted to ask you, who was talking or telling you about the two of them, that's Ken and the defendant and Mr. Van Patten being together? Who was talking at that time?
Ken.
Okay. So when the defendant was talking about being together with Mr. Van Patten, did he tell you not to tell your mom that?
Correct.
And did he tell you why?
Please approach. Objections overruled.
Trevor, did the defendant tell you why he didn't want you to tell his mom that he was with Mr. Van Patten?
That I didn't want to tell my mom?
Yeah.
Because they would get in trouble together.
Anything else happen during that car ride?
No, it was a pretty smooth car ride, sir.
Did you have contact with the defendant, Mr. Louisma, again after he dropped you off at your house?
Not again after until the morning after. It was a Sunday morning, about 8:30. Came, knocked on my door, knocked on my window.
Okay.
Finally got. Go ahead.
And then, what were you doing when he came to your house and he knocked on the window?
I was sleeping.
Did that wake you up?
Yes, sir.
And when you heard the knocking, then did you do something to see who was there?
I did.
Okay. What'd you do?
I then waved him over, come to the door, and then I opened my door. He stood right in the landing area of my front, like in front of my house. And then then he was like, if somebody approaches you, ask you questions, just tell them I was here all night playing video games. And it was kind of, raised questions in my mind.
Only known Ken, my client, for about 2 weeks on that night. Is that correct?
Correct, yep.
He'd given you rides to or from work before?
Correct, yep.
And so this night was not unlike any of those other nights, agreed?
Agreed.
So today, it was your testimony that Ken said, don't tell my mom because we get into trouble, correct?
Correct.
But that's not what you told me in your deposition, is it?
I don't remember.
Would it help you if you had a chance to look at that transcript?
Yes.
And counsel, and for the record, this is page 21, starting at line 20. May I approach, Judge?
You may.
Well, your testimony today was that Ken said that they got in trouble together. That is not what your testimony was in your deposition, was it?
Correct.
In your deposition, you said that was simply your impression
Yeah.
from what had been said, correct?
Yeah.
And actually, in your deposition, you said, I don't even remember who said that to begin with, correct?
Correct.
State and spell your full name for the record.
My name is Jan Abel, Y-O-N-A-B-E-L.
Thank you. Go ahead, counsel.
Thank you, Your Honor. Will you tell us how you're currently employed?
I am a detective sergeant with the Lynn County Sheriff's Office.
And how long have you been employed with the Lynn County Sheriff's Office?
28 years.
What the purpose of you doing that follow-up work was?
I went to Walmart to take photos of an aisle in the sporting goods area and specifically items that were purchased from that location.
How did you know which aisle in the sporting goods section you needed to go photograph?
I'd seen video previously of people in that area before coming from that general area, and I knew what items I was looking for as well.
What items were you looking for?
I was looking for a machete and then also a pair of gloves.
And when you got to the Walmart and got to that aisle, did you determine that the machetes and the specific pair of gloves you were looking for were in the same aisle?
Yes,
And did you photograph all of that?
I did.
Your Honor, the state would offer 9A through 9H.
Any objection to 9A through 9H?
No objection.
9A through 9H are admitted.
Permission to publish States Exhibits 9A through 9H and to republish Exhibit 7B.
You may tell me when you're ready.
I'm ready, Judge. Looking first at States Exhibit 9A, is this the sporting goods aisle that you were primarily focused on?
Yes.
Along that back shelf there, what are those?
Coolers?
And to show you States Exhibit 7B, are those coolers at the top of the screen along that back row as well?
Yes.
From this vantage point in 9A, where are the machetes hanging in this aisle?
Be on the right side.
And is that in this area?
Yes.
And the gloves that you were looking for, where were those hanging?
On the left side.
In this area?
Correct.
So in States Exhibit 9B, have you now turned your camera to the right of that aisle?
Yes.
And were you able to see or find the specific machetes that you were looking for?
Yes.
And is kind of center screen, is this the machetes that you were looking for?
Yes.
Did the machetes that were hanging on that rack match up with the machetes that were found in this investigation?
Yes.
And when I say match up, packaging, size, shape, all of the above.
Yes.
Is 9C a closer up photo of the machete that I just circled with my mouse in the prior photo?
Yes.
And 9D, what are we looking at here?
It's the opposite side of the aisle. We're looking at fishing and gloves specifically.
Do you want to use that laser pointer that's up there, please, and on the big screen, show us the gloves that you were specifically looking for?
So it'll be these gray and black right there.
The gray and black ones that have writing on the top of the hand?
Yes.
And are we zoomed in on those gloves on 9E?
Yes.
Just to be clear, out of the 2 gloves that are shown in 9E, are we looking at the ones on the left?
Yes, the ones with the $277 price tag above them.
Perfect. 9F, what are we looking at here?
This will be the same glove reversed with the UPC code.
And why was it important for you to picture the UPC code and the packaging of this glove?
There was a receipt located during a search warrant previously with the items on this receipt.
Thank you, Your Honor. Could you state your name and spell for the record?
My name is Brandon Munson, BRANDONMONSON.
And have you been subpoenaed to testify in this trial?
Yes, sir, I have.
And previous to today, have you come here to the courthouse and provided a sworn statement in a deposition?
Previous to today, yes, I have.
During that deposition, were you asked questions about certain things you might know about this case?
Yes, sir, I was.
Do you recall being asked specifically about a car ride?
Yes, sir, I have. I do.
And do you recall that the car ride you were asked about would have happened on or about the night that Melody Hoffman was killed?
It was the night of.
Okay. And during that car ride on the night that Melody Hoffman was killed, who were you with?
I was with Logan Kimpton, I was with Taya Meyer, and I was with another guy named Dakota Cruz.
And do you remember where you were seated in the vehicle?
I think I was in the rear passenger seat.
Do you recall Logan Kimpton talking openly about some plans that he had made with McKinley Louisma and Dakota Van Patten?
Yes, I do.
What do you recall Logan Kimpton saying about the plans that he had made with the defendant, Mr. Louisma, and Dakota Van Patten?
I was told, the whole vehicle was told, that he had a plan to go murder someone. And he said that it was going to be that night, the night of the murder. And I lost my train of thought.
Generally speaking, do you have problems with memory?
I do.
And we have talked to you about your memory of this truck ride with Logan Kimpton and some others. Do you recall giving a deposition in the summer?
I do recall that.
And we've talked to you about that car ride again here today, correct?
Yes, sir.
And as you walked into this courtroom, this courthouse today, did you even recall the specific detail that Logan had implicated McKinley Louisma and Dakota Van Patten with his statements?
I don't remember exactly what I said, but I remember roughly about what I said.
And did someone have to refresh your memory of that particular detail today?
Someone did have to refresh my memory on that detail, yes.
No further questions, Your Honor.
And if you would please state and spell your full name for the record.
Taya Jo Meyer.
All right, and I'm going to have you speak right into the microphone in front of you. You could pull it down a little bit so you're closer. It bends. Great.
Taya Jo Meyer.
And how do you spell that, ma'am?
TAYAJOMEYER.
Thank you. Go ahead, counsel.
Thank you, Your Honor. Have contact with Dakota Van Patten on or about the night that Melody Hoffman was killed?
Yes.
Could you tell us first, how did you end up having contact with Dakota Van Patten the night that Melody Hoffman was killed?
He called me and asked me if he could come over and he needed to talk to me.
When he called you, what were you doing?
I was just laying in my room, just laying down, hanging out with my dog.
When he called you to ask if he could talk to you, what did you tell him?
I said, sure, I guess. I mean, I was going to go to sleep, but I guess.
Did he tell you where he was when he called you?
No.
Did you end up then having contact with him in person?
Yes.
How'd that happen?
He told me to come downstairs and He asked if we can go upstairs. He tried to give me a hug. I said, no, get away from me. What is this about? Just get to the point. And then we headed upstairs.
So he was downstairs. Was he outside of the residence first?
Yes.
And then he asked to come upstairs, meaning into your apartment?
Yes.
And did you let him into your apartment?
Yes.
Okay. And when you got into the apartment, where did the two of you talk?
In my room.
In your bedroom?
Yes.
When he came into your bedroom to talk, did you ask him what's up?
Yes.
Okay. Can you describe, before I ask you what he told you, can you describe what his demeanor and appearance was, like how he's acting?
He was just chill, really didn't talk. Like, he was just not acting like himself, but like, I don't know. He was just chill, and he just had a weird type of aura or vibe to him. So.
What did he tell you that he wanted to talk to you?
Yes.
Did he tell you how he got to your apartment?
He told me that he got here by a car. He didn't tell me who. It was just like, I didn't like see because it was dark. It looked like a black car, but I didn't know.
Did he tell you who he was with that night?
No. Yes, he told me he was with Ken.
So tell us about the conversation, starting with him wanting to tell you that he really wanted to tell you something. What did you say to him?
So I closed my door. I said, so what is this about? I want to go to bed. Like, what are you here for? And he was just like, why do you need to tell you something? I said, well, get off your chest. Tell me, like, what's going on? And he was like, I killed someone. I said, who, why, what the fuck, what for? And he was like, that Melody girl. And I was like, for what? She didn't do anything to you. Who, why would you do that? Who with? What was the reason? He was like, with Ken. And then I said, for what? Why are you at my house? I don't want any part of this. And then
Okay, I'm going to stop you for a second so we can break that down, okay? When you said, what is this about? And he said he wanted to tell you something, your testimony is that Mr. Van Patten said that he killed somebody.
Mm-hmm.
Is that a yes? Okay. Is that a yes?
Yes.
Okay. And what did he say to you about who he was with when he killed her?
He just said he was with Ken, and he really didn't say anything more about it. I said, why? And I said, why did it happen? And he just said it had to be done.
I think that's all I have, Judge.
Cross?
Yes, Your Honor. Good afternoon, Ms. Meyer.
Morning.
Regarding these three young men, Mr. Louisma, Mr. Kimpton, and Mr. Van Patten, had you seen any of them with machetes prior to this date?
Before, are you meaning?
Yes, before Ms. Hoffman's death.
I don't think so. No.
Ms. Meyer, I'll ask you, do you recall giving a deposition on July 25th of this year?
Yes.
And do you recall giving a statement to me and Ms. Eimerman and other attorneys that day?
Yes.
And do you recall taking an oath that you would tell the truth on that day?
Yes.
Do you recall if we had asked you on that day whether you had seen any of these young men with machetes before?
Yes.
Do you recall your answer that day on July 25th?
No.
You don't recall your answer?
No.
If I showed you the transcript of that deposition, would it refresh your memory?
Yes.
Your Honor, may I approach?
You may.
Ms. Meyer, did that refresh your memory of the answers you gave on July 25th?
Yes.
And did you say you had seen those individuals with machetes before?
Yes, just a few days like prior to the day you were asking, like Tuesday or Wednesday.
Okay. And did you think anything of seeing those machetes?
No.
And were they within the context of kind of just lying around?
Yes.
Okay. And also, Ms. Meyer, today, you gave some testimony about some statements that Dakota Van Patten made to you when he came to your house late on February 18. Is that correct?
Yes.
And you said that he told you that he had killed someone?
Yes.
But today you also said that he told you he was with McKinley Louisma when he killed someone?
Yes, I didn't remember at first, and then when I've been trying to remember everything, I did remember my statement to police or whatever, and I was like, oh, yeah, not, you know, I remembered him say that he was with Ken, but he didn't say anything other than it had to be done, and nothing about other than Ken was with him.
Okay. And again, I'll ask, do you recall your deposition from July 25th of this year?
Yes.
And do you recall detailing the statement in which Mr. Van Patten said that he had killed someone at that time?
Yes.
And do you recall what you said on that day about who he was with?
I think I said he was alone. I'm not for sure.
And so you think on July 25th you said he wasn't with anyone else?
Yes. Yes.
I don't have any further questions, Your Honor.
Redirect.
Taya, do you remember on the date of that deposition that I also asked you some questions?
Yes.
And you remember me asking you about whether you remember telling police officers when they interviewed you that Mr. Van Patten said he was with Ken?
Yes.
Do you remember what you said at that time?
No.
And would being able to reference the deposition be able to help you recall what you said when I asked you that?
Yes.
What did you say that when I asked you that day?
I said I don't remember. I don't know. I said also maybe, but I just couldn't remember on the top of my head.
Prior to coming in to testify today, did you have a chance to watch an interview that you had with the police when they were asking about this?
Yes.
And then that interview, did you say to the police that Mr. Van Patten said when he was talking about killing Melody Hoffmanin that it was he and Ken that did it?
Yes.
Is that what you told the police?
Yes.
That's all I have, Your Honor.
Cross.
No, Your Honor.
Thank you, ma'am.
We don't have any other witnesses today scheduled.
All right, jurors, so we're out of witnesses today, so I guess it's going to be an early day. We're going to release you until 9 o'clock tomorrow.